All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb Thursday afternoon. I'm Jeff Goodman. He is Doug Gottlieb. And make sure you scan that QR code on your screen to send us your questions, your feedback, whatever it is. If you're mad at Doug, make sure you send that to him as well. But nobody's ever mad at you, Doug. Nobody's ever mad at you, right? I mean, you're positive. You feel good, especially after watching that Marquette game last night against Texas, where Tyler Kolek, Cam Jones completely dismantled the Longhorns. The number 8 Marquette Golden Eagles look for real again. They have the best point guard in the country, in my opinion, Doug. I hope you are ready to admit today that Tyler Kolek, after carving up a really good Texas backcourt, is the best floor leader, the best all-around point guard in the country. He had 28 points, but he does it all, Douglas. He does it all. Are you ready to admit that Marquette is for real and Tyler Kolek is the best point guard in the country?
Well, when did I not admit that Marquette was for real? I mean, because in the show, again, and you can help me with my memory, but we picked games last week and all of my picks were correct. All of yours that went against me were incorrect. I mean, like, look, you got a cat at Kansas who's won a national championship who's also a true point guard. There are some other options out there. But what I've not done is I've not said Tyler Kolek isn't the best. We have to see it in the NCAA tournament. We've seen this from Marquette before. I think the bigger thing is Texas can't shoot. Outside of Max Abmas, where do they go for shooting? And I love the way in which Shaka purports himself in a game like that, right? Where, so many of us with our egos, we would let that kind of get out of control, where he just has a great balance about him. It's not about him. It's about his team. It's about his university. It's about his program. And yeah, they dismantled Texas. Last night wasn't a surprise though. I mean, you're not winning Milwaukee this year. Heck, UConn couldn't win in Milwaukee last year and they could beat everybody else. Kolek's great. They're really good. Matchup-wise, I thought they did an excellent job of preparation. And my greater concern is for Texas long-term than it is being surprised in any way about Marquette.
No, you're 100% right. The Longhorns really, other than Max Abmas, don't have shooting. Tyrese Hunter, not a shooter. Dylan Mitchell, not much of a shooter. They're bigs. They're down bigs as well. I mean, that's the hard part, right? Dylan Disu was supposed to be healthy. He's not. He can stretch it a little bit. Caden Shedrick, not much of a skill guy that you're going to put out there to open the floor. So now, if you're Rodney Terry, you're very limited in how you can manufacture points because, again, most teams, they'll press up on Abmas, but everybody else, Doug, you're daring them. You want them to shoot the ball from the perimeter. One thing you do not want from Tyler Kolek. So here's my question to you. Who is the best comp for Tyler Kolek? And you can't say yourself, of course, because Tyler could really shoot the hell out of the ball.
It's a great question. Man, that's a really good question. I'm trying to think of guards that play like him because he can shoot and score, but if it was up to him, he'd set everybody up all night, right? He's a better scoring version of Pepe Sanchez in terms of just the ability to play fast and play slow and control everything, plus same hand dominant. But I don't remember Pepe ever scoring at that level in the college game. That would be kind of one of the first ones that comes to my mind. There's a little bit of Deron Sheffer to him, who I played against when he was at UConn. Again, good size, could make shots if you dared him to, but wanted to make, at that time, Ray Allen and Travis Knight look better. I mean, those are the first two because he has better size than I do as well. He's not as explosive as like I was a little bit more explosive. Again, that's not the right comp, and I'm trying to think of, but it's not that he's slow, right? He's faster and quicker than like Kendall Marshall, who was a great pass-first point guard, couldn't shoot at that level. But he's got size, which helps him defensively where he lacks. He can shoot, and he's tough. I mean, really, really a tough kid. And that translates. When your best player is your toughest player, whoever your best player is, personality-wise, style-wise, that's who your team generally is. And this team's toughness doesn't come from Shaka. I think it comes from Tyler Kohler.
Yeah, he's got all the intangibles. He probes very well. You know, I think sometimes you look like he's going to get himself into trouble when he goes deep, but he somehow kind of finds a way out of it because I think he's got terrific court vision as well. Just sees everything. But again, the big difference, Doug, is he can make people better whenever he wants. But then, again, he can make shots when he needs to. But he's so unselfish that he's not trying to go for 28. But as he showed last night, he can go for 28. Shaka, obviously came from Texas where it did not work out at all for him. And he goes to Marquette, lands on his feet so quickly, right? I mean, it's the perfect spot for him. In the Midwest, they love basketball. At Texas, let's face it, we know it's a football school. How much of a role did Shaka's revenge play in this outcome, if any?
I think some. I don't think we can underscore it. I mean, if you've been around Shaka enough, and you and I both have, he has an amazing kind of warm personality that brings people in, right? And so even though those kids that play for him in Marquette, and some of them have played for him for 2 years, they don't really understand the Texas thing, or, basketball is so transactional, there's not as much feeling to it. You play for your coach. I mean, the really, really good teams, you're playing for your coach, not playing for yourself. And so I think it's a factor. Was it the reason? No, they were better, and they exposed, I thought they played a little bit harder. I thought they exposed Texas's lack of shooting, and I thought Tyler Kohler was the best player on the floor. But did it play a role? I think we'd all be blind to not think it didn't. And look, Marquette always has a great fan base. Was it Fiserv Forum, whatever? It's always good. But there's also a certain level of appreciation and respect. And, hey, this is our guy. We have his back. We think they did him wrong. Like, let's remember when he left Texas, and he left, he wasn't fired, but we thought it was probably going to be on the hot seat the next year. It was a smart move. This is a better fit. And we're going to get into the NIL discussion. I think Marquette is really well. These types of schools are actually better positioned than people think in terms of the next couple of years with NIL. But I think that helped their energy as well. Midweek in December, we're getting close to dead week before finals week, and they had great energy. All those other things are true, and the crowd, the players can still play for Shaka and give them a little bit extra boost. It was a factor.
All right, speaking of NIL, Doug, great transition that you have been terrific with lately. Earlier this week, NCAA President Charlie Baker proposed a new subdivision where schools could now directly funnel money to their players. So I ask you, what impact will this have, if it goes through, if this happens, on college basketball?
It will. What it will do is what we've been told, or we've been told has been threatened for the last couple of years, which is the break off of the haves and the have-nots. Because what was proposed is $8 to $10 million. Now that does include football. There's also a Title IX element to it as well, which there's a lot of how does that actually work. But most schools don't have that money. They just don't. There's just no way around it. I know that Jay Billis likes to go on to social media and say, hey, there's just not enough money. The truth is they don't have the money. And the second you do this, I mean, they're trying to very much be on that fine line of giving the bigger schools, the more financially stable school, kind of a leg up in the competition, maybe almost a breakaway sort of sect of Division I sports, which has long been discussed, while also trying to maintain their tax-exempt status, while also trying to maintain the fact that the players aren't employees. All of that, and they don't want to get into the collective bargaining to it because that money is already kind of spoken for. So some schools are already putting away this kind of rainy day fund in case it happens. But again, I'll give you the Big 12 as an example that people don't know. This is a little secret that's not really a secret within Big 12 circles. So the Big 12 schools, the ones that have been in the conference, that are staying in the conference, obviously not named Texas and Oklahoma, They have a $6 million and change shortfall over the next 2 years, okay? Because they were expected to make a certain amount. The new TV deal doesn't go online until next year. And because you brought in new schools, they all receive a percentage of the cut. And so there's a shortfall. Some schools are taking it all in 1 year. Some schools are rolling it into a 2-year plan. It just depends upon the athletic department. Okay, so again, remember, what they're proposing here is, hey, we need to put $8 to $10 million aside for football, basketball, and some sort of Title IX. And oh yeah, by the way, like, I already have a budget where everything is spoken for. So what falls off? Like, it's just like any sort of salary cap. If you pay one, something's going to fall off. And the guess is that if this happens, Olympic sports are going to get slaughtered. So there's so much to it. But it's definitely a real conversation. It's everyone trying to figure out, how do we keep the Ohio States, the Texases, the Notre Dames, the Alabamas, the Big Brother, how do we keep them happy while also maintaining our tax exempt status, while also allowing other schools to participate in Division I, while not, quote unquote, paying the athletes? Because if you pay the athletes, then they get taxed, then they can get fired, then they have to, everything changes. So that's what I think.
Yeah, and ultimately, what needs to happen is everybody on the same equal footing as well, Doug. You know, that's a big part of this. You know, if these schools are going to, right now, it's so much is done through a collective, and now if you can kind of do it directly, it takes that out of the equation. Right now, some schools are able to do certain things, other schools are not. To me, I think that's another thing Charlie Baker wants is something that's across the board, the same for everybody. So you're dealing with the same rules. And again, yeah, there are going to be haves and have-nots. There already have been haves and have-nots. Now I think it's going to be even greater in terms of some of these smaller schools are going to have no opportunity to compete because they don't have the revenue. They don't have the money to be able to compete. But listen, should players have a voice in all this, Doug? Or is this something, who should really determine this? Because right now, Charlie Baker, the former governor of Massachusetts, you know, he's the one leading the way here, trying to get it done. Who else should have a say in this, however the plan is formulated?
I mean, I think you're going to have to turn it back to the schools. I mean, that's how the NCAA works, right? The NCAA is just a collection of representatives from these schools. That's how ultimately be decided. Like, there's a battle on so many fronts. Right? You have the lawsuits for past wages that weren't paid. You have the fight by some of these lawyers, one of whom, Jason Belzer, joined me on my podcast called All Ball, and he talked about the fight for revenue sharing with the new TV deals. And then, you know, you have social media, which is completely pro player, you know, forget the schools, don't worry about education. And then you have the fight within schools themselves, where you got academia, that they want their schools to be about all the other stuff on campus. And then here's the big thing, okay? You're a donor. You love your school. You give money every year to your school, okay? These things legitimately happen. And you get hit up for the school for your usual stuff, then for your tickets, then for your donation. Now they're saying, hey, we know you've given to all these projects and to all this other stuff, but we also want you to give to the NIL Collective. And oh yeah, by the way, when you give to the NIL Collective, a lot of times you can direct it towards one player, male or female. Okay, so in addition to there being really no ROI, these are brilliant business people who have done well for themselves, and you want me to give all this money to the university. And oh yeah, by the way, a lot of the donations since the Trump administration, there isn't the tax exempt, you don't get the tax benefit of buying season tickets along with your donation. That's gone away. So now I don't get taxed nearly as much tax benefits, and I got to give money, and the player might not be any good, or they might be freshmen and they might not be ready to play, and then they transfer out. Now I'm ticked off. So yeah, it's a crazy fight. When people say it's a mess, they're underselling it, how bad it is. Okay.
And coaches, coaches are extremely frustrated again because they don't know what they can do. They don't know where it's headed, how to prepare. And again, they're looking at other coaches saying, well, he's allowed to actually deal with a kid and talk about NIL, and I'm not. How is that fair? How is that? So, and most coaches, listen, they can't say publicly how they really feel, but I've talked to, a ton of coaches, and 90% of them, again, they're not going to say it because they don't want to lose recruits, but 90% of them don't love the whole NIL system. They don't.
No,
they'll say they want players to get paid.
Of course they will. And what happens on social media and regular media is we act like, well, these coaches, they're just greedy they're like, no, many of them want players to receive some sort of compensation. But what you can't have is complete free agency. What you need to have is some sort of transparency. Everyone's lying to you. Like, you go on social media and you see these numbers. They walk into an office and a school that recruited them, that supported them, that played them, and they say, hey, I want $200,000 or I'm leaving. Like, how do you know that money's really out there? Like, it's a crazy number. And usually the numbers are about half as much as they're saying. So something has to be done. I think that Baker's trying to get ahead of it. I think he probably has some cues from Congress on what they can and can't get done. But it's going to take the schools to figure out a set plan of this is how it works. And they have to bind together because, as we've seen with the 2-time transfers, we're not approving any waivers. Have you noticed what's happened the past couple of weeks? All these waivers are suddenly getting approved because you're getting pressure from media and social media because they can't stand anybody saying a bad word about them.
All right, coming up, there are a couple of top 25 battles on tap this weekend. We break down those matchups next, right here, Goodman versus Gottlieb. All right, welcome back. Purdue big man Zack Edey is on the verge of a major milestone. He is just 27 points away from passing the one and only Robbie Hummel for 10th on Purdue's all-time scoring list. Well, Robbie took to social media with his reaction, and he posted a word we can't say on the air, but I think he said it on the air before. So I don't know if he's going to be able. Listen, all I know is, Doug, I do a podcast with Hummel, and Goodman and Hummel podcast, and I've said once he drops out of the top, I only do podcasts with guys that are top 10, either scoring or assists, something. You know, you're on obviously the all-time assist deal at Oklahoma State. Hummel falls out of the top 10. I'm done with him.
Nationally, dude, relax. I've been through this. Okay, I was 7th nationally in assists. Okay, now I'm 11th. So I completely understand his pain. Completely.
Did it hurt?
I'm somewhere on the Oklahoma State list. Like, what are you talking about? And the thing about Robbie Hummel that stinks for Robbie is obviously got hurt, at Purdue. Yeah. So he probably would have been 5th or so on that list, and we all know that was a Final Four caliber team of playing in Indianapolis, but that doesn't matter because Rick Mount's sitting somewhere going like, yeah, if I had a 3-point line, I would have had 3,000 points because Rick Mount would shoot from the parking lot. So,
yes.
I mean, look, I think it's a good thing. I mean, it's one of those deals where, I can tell you, yes, like I held every Big 12 assist record. Now, Aaron Miles passed me, but he played 4 years at Kansas. I played 3 years at Oklahoma State. The Notre Dame assists don't count in the Big 12 because they're not in the Big 12. So what most of us do is privately, we root for guys to go pro. It's like TJ Ford probably would have broken all my records, right? I mean, but he only stayed a couple years in Texas. So it's like, hey, TJ, it's like, you got to do it. Coach Sutton used to do this. No, Coach Sutton used to do this, and I never forget. We'd play a team, and they'd have an underclassman who's really good. And he'd shake their hands and go, man, you were fantastic. Good luck next year in the NBA. And he was like, NBA? So, I do that to assist guys all the time. Like, man, what a great year. Good luck in the league next year. Like, well, I wasn't really going to the league. Yeah, you are. There you are.
All right. We got a couple of really good top 25 games this weekend. We'll start with Wisconsin, number 23, and the Badgers, man, they have looked about as good as anybody in the country. They take on number 1 Arizona in Tucson at McHale Center. Wisconsin, again, they've won 6 in a row now, including beating in-state rival Marquette, winning in East Lansing against Michigan State. So I ask you, and I'm not quite ready, do you believe in the Badgers yet? Do you believe in them, Doug, as a Final Four contender?
No, but I believe them as a contender in the Big Ten without any question. And I think, you want to talk about a team that flipped their season, right? They were not playing well the first couple weeks, but as they've gotten healthier, they've gotten better. And they have looked outstanding. And part of it is they have age, they have experience, they have a system. But do I believe in them? Yes. But again, I'm not ready to put them as a Final Four team. They beat Marquette last year. They weren't better than Marquette. So that one's not really the one. It's the going into East Lansing, super impressive. Obviously, Klesmit can really shoot the basketball. They have enough athleticism in their backcourt. But I'll be interested to see what they do against Arizona, because Arizona, I think this is a good matchup for the Cats. And we're going to find out a lot about both teams. Do I believe in them in the Big Ten? Yes. Do I believe in them as a Final Four contender, favorite? No, I would say they're just outside of what I would say those teams are.
Yeah, and the crazy thing, Connor Esigian, who had such a good year last year, is barely playing. And nobody knows completely why. I know he had an injury. He also hasn't been guarding at a high level. I don't know if those are the primary reasons or what. But, again, if you had told me that he would be a non-factor this year, a lot of people would have said, hey, this Wisconsin team's not even an NCAA tournament team. Now their resume, you lose at Providence, no shame. We know that. Like, everybody's going to lose it. Well, most teams are going to lose at Providence. But to rebound the way they have and get that Marquette win, get Michigan State, and now you go in. Honestly, you're playing with house money right now. Going into McHale and Tucson, if you win that game, you're talking about now. I think then your tune will change, Doug. Then my tune will change as well, and we'll start thinking about them as, okay, maybe they are true. They're old. They got a lot of guys who have been around for a long time. Chucky Hepburn certainly keeps continuing to kind of steadily grow in terms of his decision making. So I think you're right. They're like in the mix for the second team now in the Big Ten, where 2 weeks ago we never would have had them in the mix for that at all. All right, staying with the Big Ten. Number 20 Illinois plays in Knoxville against number 17 Tennessee. I just saw the Illini, and they took care of FAU in Madison Square Garden, and I was a little bit surprised. But here's what I'll say. Marcus Domask was unbelievable in that game. The Southern Illinois transfer had 33 points and was unstoppable. He's just kind of got, that I don't know if old man's game is the right way to describe him, but he's big, he's strong. He's not super athletic, but knows how to play, can back guys down, take advantage of them in the post, can shoot it. Now, this was a career game for him, too. But Terrence Shannon and Marcus Domask, they've both got really good positional size for wings, and that's where I think they can match up with Tennessee, a really good defensive team that, again, we know struggles to score.
A couple things here. The Domask thing didn't surprise me at all because I actually, as you know, when I was talking to UW Green Bay, he's from that part of Wisconsin. And when you're looking like who's going to be in the portal, and like that was the first name that came up, and it was Illinois and Iowa State or maybe go play professionally. And I was like, professionally, I got to see this kid, and he is that good, and he is that kind of perfect college player where he can play some forward defensively, and offensively he's a really hard matchup. You and I discussed this. Most important position on the floor is that 4 spot. It gives them great versatility offensively, and defensively they're just good enough. And then when you put Hawkins, when he's playing well enough and you can put him at the 5, now you spread out their offense, and you have, Terrence Shannon's a big time scorer, also a 5th-year guy, right? And you have Domask, who's a big time scorer and a 5th-year guy. And then you have no post. That's why you play without Dane Danger. Then now you have no post in the lane, and there's so much space to operate, drive, and kick. And Brad's a really good coach. I like this Illini team a lot better. I'm still cautious about not having enough guard play, but they navigate it by having so many hybrid forwards and guys that can handle and shoot, which is a really interesting way. Now, the interesting part is, right, they're going to play Tennessee, and you got Dalton Knecht. Okay, Dalton Knecht he's different than Domask, but they're similar in that crazy skilled older players. He's obviously a little bit more bouncy, but both aren't great at the defensive end, and that kind of X's each other out here. This is a big game for Tennessee, right? Because kind of laid an egg at Carolina. Right? They haven't looked great since the best they looked all year was when they beat Michigan State at Michigan State in that scrimmage. That's when they looked outstanding. So this is big, especially with a team who's coming in hot, who's coming with a lot of confidence and has a lot of offensive firepower, some that usually spells doom for Tennessee. I like Tennessee because they're the home team in this one, but I'm also well aware that this Tennessee team has yet to live up to what our expectations of what they'll look like on paper.
I want to see more from the Illini. That's the big thing. They looked really good against an FAU team that, frankly, doesn't have a lot of size in the backcourt or on the perimeter. So I think it was a matchup that Marcus Domask could really take advantage of, and he did. And Shannon, same thing. When they went downhill, and Vlad Golden was in foul trouble, which he's been in seemingly every game lately, and they're a completely different team with Golden off the court, the 7'1" big man. So I'm not ready yet to say that the Illini are like for real. I think, again, Ty Rodgers is the guy that I'm worried about. A point guard that can't shoot the ball at all. And I don't know if he makes people better consistently either. So I think Ty Rodgers is just that tough as nails guard that coming off the bench that's what he would be better suited for than starting and having a lot on his plate to have to run the team and get everybody the ball. All right, coming up, it looks like Bronny James could see the court in the very near future. We'll let you know exactly what to expect, and I think Doug and I differ a little bit on this one. That and more on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back. Goodman versus Gottlieb, and evidently there's a thing called donkey basketball. Yes, donkey basketball. So it got us thinking, who would be better at donkey basketball? Danny or Bobby Hurley? And look at this, Doug. Who do you think? Who's your pick, Bobby or Danny?
Well, Bobby has experience with the horses, with the real horses, not the jackasses. But I would say Bobby. I would say Bobby with his equine experience.
That's pretty good. I like that. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Bobby and horses. Although Bobby, I don't know how much luck he had with the horses, but he does have experience at least with them.
Sure.
All right, time to address some big hoop questions here. All right, first, Bronny James is going to come back here soon. I don't know when he's making his USA debut, but the next game is against Long Beach State, Sunday at 4 o'clock. The good news is LeBron doesn't have a game the same day. USC's 5-3. I want to know, and we've differed a little bit on Bronny back in high school, but I think we're actually going to agree on this a little bit. What can we expect from Bronny James this season?
Again, like just happy he's healthy. Like, let's just start with that. And I mean, I can't imagine being a billionaire and having a son who's bright, healthy, has a world of the future and saying, hey, let's go play basketball again. So I hope that all the medical news is good news, and that was just some sort of blip on the radar. What can we expect? I think he'll be kind of a typical freshman in 2023. You know, he's not a starting caliber player on that team based upon their roster. But he can come off the bench and he can guard and he can make some shots. And occasionally in transition, he can finish. He's not a guy who requires the ball in his hands a ton. Obviously, they have Isaiah Collier, who's going to dominate the basketball. But I think he'll play off him quite nicely. He's a blend player, and his role will probably be in the 7th or 8th man sort of variety. And we'll see. He's also very confident, but he has a tendency to, not call his own number, to move the basketball, just shoot when he's open. So, he's not, I don't think he's a double-digit scorer more than once or twice in his freshman year. He's a good, solid player who, once you get against older, better competition, his minutes will probably be minimized some. But I definitely think he'll have a role in this team.
I agree with you 1,000% in everything you said. He's a great blend player. This actually takes a little bit of pressure off him because now he's missed the preseason. He's missed the start of the season. And one thing about Bronny James is his IQ is so high. It's so high. It's not LeBron high, but it's very high for a young freshman. And he doesn't need the ball. He can play kind of either backcourt spot. He can help. He can kind of be that third guard, too, if you want to play him alongside Boogie Ellis and Isaiah Collier. I think he can do that as well if you want to play small. But he's going to help this team because of his poise, because of his maturity, because he can make everybody else better. And he's not going to, like you said, he's not going to need to be the guy, but I still worry about like a little too much pressure for people. And now the only positive of everything that's happened for me, Doug, is hopefully this has slowed the timeline for LeBron wanting to get Bronny to the NBA to play with him. Hopefully now Bronny can get at least a year and a half under his belt before they even think about taking him to the NBA, where I just didn't think there was any way he would be ready after one season.
Yeah, I understand what people want him to be. You got to be fair to the kid. Like, look, he's not 6'2". Okay, his brother measured out this summer at 6'2.5", and his brother's a couple inches taller than him. Okay, it doesn't mean that. Look, everybody just needs somebody to believe in them to get an opportunity. It doesn't mean that he won't ultimately, and LeBron won't help him get an opportunity. Yeah. But he's not ready for that. He's just not.
Nope.
Unless his progress was monumental, he didn't have a great senior year. Now, being a blend player, that's who's going to have to be in the NBA. A role player, come in, guard somebody, okay, make a shot, stand in the corner. But he's not a point guard, so he has to play off the basketball. And remember, if you're a perimeter player, you think he's ready to guard Kyrie and Luka Doncic? And no.
Nobody is.
I'm a 3-and-D guy. Like, okay, you defended guys in high school. Okay? Yeah. You're a perimeter player in the pros. You got to defend those guys. So I'm with you. I still think they get him out of college in a year. That's part of the deal. And they put him on a bench, put him on a roster, and he does the G League, and maybe he gets called up a game here or there, and they get to play together. That's probably the likely scenario. But in terms of his best plan would be what you propose, which is just let him enjoy college, let him grow as a player, let him play for a couple years, become his own style of player, and I just don't think that'll happen.
So Rutgers got a verbal commitment yesterday from Dylan Harper, who is the son of Ron Harper, the brother of Ron Harper Jr., who played at Rutgers. Steve Pikiell now has two of the top 3 prospects in the class. He and Ace Bailey both have committed to Rutgers. Amazing, right? Like, who would have thought Steve Pikiell at Rutgers is able to land 2 of the top 3 players in next year's class, freshmen? So can the Scarlet Knights become a serious player next season?
In terms of?
I don't know, like maybe could they fight for one of those top 2 or 3 spots in the Big Ten, be a Sweet 16 team?
Probably not. I mean, again, I don't know what their roster is going to look like. Right? Like, let's just ask the question: what's their NIL budget? Right? If their NIL budget is a couple $1 million, right, $2-3 million, how much do they spend on these two? Promise these two, and then what can they put around them? Do they put a whole new team around them of the veteran guys and they go for it? If that's the case, well, yeah, of course. But if it's basically, hey, we're gonna get a guy here, get a guy there, like, it's show me a team that's won. Especially remember, next year is the last year of the COVID seniors. Okay, so show me a team that's won in this era with their best player or two being freshmen. What they do benefit
I
is.
like Harbaugh. Yeah.
Huh?
I like Harper, Doug. I think he's a good player. But again, we also have to put in context. This recruiting class next season, the freshman class, is much like, other than Cooper Flagg, much like the one that's now on colleges' campuses. It's not overwhelming. So, again, I think Rutgers will be good, but like you're saying, they're going to need to supplement it with some older portal guys. Gavin Griffiths will be a sophomore. He's a good player who can shoot it. All right, last night, Clemson beat South Carolina, Doug. At Clemson, it wasn't an easy one. Both teams went in undefeated. And honestly, South Carolina did a good job staying close. But I ask you, Clemson, 8-0 right now. Virginia, 8-1. You got Miami. You got a struggling Duke team that's not going to be without Tyrese Proctor for a little while. Carolina. Who's the best team in the ACC right now?
I think Carolina's the best team in the ACC. Well, again, that's actually. I think Clemson is playing the best. I think if they played today, Clemson probably wins. I think Carolina beats the most teams in the field, and I think Duke will be fine eventually. Would be my guess. And and losing Proctor for however long might actually be the best thing for him because it can get Jared McCain going, and we can figure out, all right, do they have another option at point guard, even when he comes back if he's not playing?
It's probably going to be Foster. Doug, it's probably going to be Caleb Foster who takes.
No, I understand, but Caleb Foster they were kind of splitting minutes there a little bit, right? Yep. So now it gets them to where they don't have to look over at the bench because you still have Roach as well, right? So now you have 3 guys for 2 spots instead of 4 guys for 2 spots or 2 or 3 spots. So it gives you a chance to see where the freshmen are now. They've seen some time, how much they advance. But again, if they're all playing today, I take Clemson. Older team, know who they are, no egos, winning game, finding ways to win. I think Carolina probably has the most experience, and it's a really nice, at least their starting mix is a really nice blend of shooting, ball handling, passing, and just enough interior scoring. I think Duke has the most talent. They're playing too many guys and still haven't figured out, and they're really young. So I think Carolina would be number 1. Clemson's playing the best right now, and Duke is the team with the most upside.
I like it now because we thought Duke was going to run away with this ACC going into the year. And now, again, you didn't even mention Miami, Virginia, that Miami, they got smacked by Kentucky, but they're still pretty formidable. They got a chance there with Larinaga and that starting 5. And
no
Virginia's
question. Here's a big thing. You're right on a multitude of levels. Like, you don't mention those teams and it's almost sacrilege. But here's the thing. Like, take a Clemson. Here's something that I don't know if people realize. Again, this doesn't mean that they're the best team in the league, and they still have to go. They got TCU next. TCU's they're very, very good, especially at the point. Right? Memphis is super talented, but their schedule, they only played Duke once. Right? Now they played Duke at Duke. But when you're Clemson, you're not the highlighted team. Miami, because they went to the Final Four, they're going to play Carolina twice. They're going to play Duke twice. They're going to play Virginia twice. So just remember that Clemson, they start out ACC play with Miami on the road, Carolina at home. That's a tough way to start. At Virginia Tech, tough place to play, but not a great team this year. Boston College, Georgia Tech at home, at Florida State, at Duke, Louisville, Virginia. So they kind of bounce around, right? They play Virginia twice, but don't play Duke twice. And they don't play Carolina twice, although they play Duke and Carolina only on the road. So in terms of where they finish in the conference, a lot of times that's based upon the strength of schedule and the reason that their schedule in many ways isn't as difficult, although Duke and Carolina only on the road is hard. And I think, have they ever beaten Carolina? They beat them. They finally beat them a couple years ago, right?
They did.
Yeah.
They had.
But I mean, they've won there once, ever. So, but in terms of where they finish in conference, a lot of that is predetermined because their schedule is likely not as difficult because TV doesn't value Clemson the way they do Miami, Virginia, Duke, Carolina.
So there are 13 unbeatens left in the country, Doug. 6 of them reside in the Big 12. Colorado State is one of them. Nevada and Colorado State are out of the Mountain West. The Rams are ranked 13th in the country. And the big question is how long can they keep their winning streak going? They're down bodies right now, right? I mean, Jalen Lake broke his finger, played with it for one game and had 16 points, and now he's on the sideline for probably a good month and a half. Isaiah Strong broke his wrist against Washington. He's out an extended period of time. Pat Cartier came back. Their starting center, after missing a little bit of time, he's fighting through it. They got St. Mary's Saturday at home in Fort Collins. Then they got a little bit of an easy slate, right? January 2nd. They get to after the new year, and they got New Mexico at home. I'll take Colorado State maybe in that one. How long can the Rams keep going? I mean, they're down guys, which worries me.
I'll tell you the most dangerous game they have until the 6th of January at Utah State. And this is no disrespect to New Mexico or even St. Mary's who they play, because St. Mary's could pop them. Obviously, St. Mary's needs it after having a disappointing non-conference. Loyola Marymount on the road right before Christmas. Remember, look, LMU last year, what did they do in that league? They beat St. Mary's, they beat Gonzaga. Big game hunters. They're an older team. They're not bad. That one would scare me. Plus, it's the game before Christmas, and it doesn't matter how mature your guys are. You're like, hey, guys, everybody's got their tickets to go home after the game. You're in L.A. That one scares me. I think Utah State is a likely spot that they get popped, but Loyola Marymount is the one that would scare me if I'm Nico.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the good thing is they've got a veteran point guard in Isaiah Stevens who, it's kind of a consummate professional as a college player in a sense that he handles himself with such poise, with such maturity. He's a great leader, not a rah-rah guy, but just makes everybody around him better. One of those guys that honestly just doesn't get enough attention and accolades because of where he plays. And now he's starting to get it because they were really good a couple years ago with David Roddy. And now they're really good again without David Roddy. I hope they can continue to kind of withstand these injuries right now and continue to win, because I think that's one. We need those kind of good mid-majors that are a little bit off the map.
No question. I hear this is a question I had you. I saw Rothstein tweeting last night about a 4-bid Mountain West. Here's the issue that the Mountain West is going to run into, right? So Nevada's been surprising, hasn't played a great schedule, but they can really score. Colorado State's been impressive, and they've beaten good teams. You and I, we talked about that on your pod. But it's like, okay, let's say San Diego State ends up winning the league, and they've had a disappointing non-conference. Lost to GCU, lost to BYU. Right? They're playing everybody now. I mean, that's God bless San Diego State. They fear nobody. They play everybody. But how do you balance out, the Nevada's not playing anybody, loading up, and if San Diego State wins the league and they weren't really that good out of the conference, what does it then say about the conference?
Yeah, it's probably going to be a 3-bid Mountain West, I would think. All right, coming up, time to send you into the weekend with some winning picks. Check it out when we return here on Goodman versus Gottlieb. All right, welcome back. This is Scott. It's that time. Buzzer beaters and game winners where we give you our picks. And let's start with a big one. Well, there's two big ones, I think, on Saturday. And the first is Illinois traveling to Knoxville against Tennessee. Who do you got, Doug?
Home team, taking Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you here. I think Illinois is going to be feeling themselves a little bit after that win at the Garden. And again, I just don't think Marcus Domask is going to be able to duplicate getting 33 again or anywhere near that. All right, Wisconsin goes to Tucson, plays number 1 Arizona. Any chance the Badgers win this one?
Any chance? Yeah, there's a chance, but I think Arizona wins. I don't want to say handily, but I don't think it's a 1 or 2 possession game. Obviously, Wisconsin loves to. This team can score now. This Wisconsin team can really score. But I like the matchup for Arizona. In addition to the fact that they're playing on their side of the country, and you mentioned feeling yourself. I think Wisconsin is a little bit as well, and they should because they've turned around their season. But I like Arizona.
Yeah, I like Arizona here too because you know why? They can guard now. Like Keyshawn Johnson is going to be a major factor in this game. They're athletic and they can guard, two things that they really haven't been over the last couple of years. And that's why Arizona, to me, is a real number 1 team this year. Last couple of years, you just didn't know what they would be able to do in the NCAA tournament. I think they're built to sustain success. Interesting game. Alabama against Purdue, Doug. Purdue loses that game to Northwestern, has a nice bounce back game. Alabama, can't really guard yet. Grant Nelson's banged up going into this one. We don't know what he's going to be. Can Alabama win this? Do they win this?
No.
Yeah. They're not ready.
No. I mean,
right?
Listen, I'm interested. Now, Spears, of course, he started at the mid-major level. He's definitely a high major guard, and he's a veteran. We'll see how he plays against Braden Smith. But, if they had Bediako from last year, this would have been a great matchup. They don't have that same rim protection and age and experience on the inside. So, no, I like Purdue.
Yeah, listen, Zack Edey is going to have a field day if he wants to because this Alabama team doesn't have a lot up front in terms of experience or depth. So if they feed Edey the ball, he's going to eat a lot. Clemson against TCU. TCU might have the weakest non-conference schedule that I've seen in a long time to date. They're finally playing somebody. Clemson. Who do you like?
I like TCU. I know TCU was very, very fortunate that they won that game against Georgetown, in which they stepped out of bounds. But Jameer Nelson Jr. is the real deal as he gets kind of more comfortable. And look, this is Jamie Dixon's deal. He did it at Pitt. He's doing it at TCU. Don't play anybody until they make you play somebody. I like crazy. These are two. TCU's, I think, that the 3rd or 4th oldest team in the country. Give me TCU.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the undefeated Clemson Tigers who have actually played somebody in this one. All right, thanks for joining us. Goodman versus Gottlieb. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
red alert.
Or blue alert.
Or blue alert. Big alert. We have breaking news coming out of Ann Arbor. This is from John Bacon. He is now reporting that Michigan is finalizing a 5-year, $55 million deal to make Jim Harbaugh the highest paid coach in the Big Ten. JP, initial thoughts?
Well, I think it's the right thing for Michigan to do. I'd put a contract in front of him. I've been saying it for weeks now. I probably still would have done it even throughout the scandal. So totally there. We'll continue this conversation in just a sec, but we want to welcome everybody in. Jake Butt, Michigan Wolverine, Joshua Perry, Ohio State Buckeye. Also want y'all to get involved. Scan that QR code. You can submit your content. You can also get in the YouTube chat. We love your comments. We respond to some of your comments, and we want to get that going. But this has been in the works for a little while. They've been talking about this contract and took a back seat, of course, during the scandal that was going on. But now it looks like the deal is close to being done. I think the most pivotal part of John Bacon's tweet